Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Zoom tonight. I'm so honored to be talking to this man. I've known him for a long time, and we're talking just before coming on live on Zoom. That we got to wear our shirts. I know one of the questions uh, that we're going to be asking each other is like, what have I learned? I can tell you just so that just to break the ice and saying that letting people know that it's just going to be a nice conversation. We'll talk some of the issues that might concern you. We also have questions from some of our constituents. But one of the cool things is that my wife gets to see me wearing a suit.
Okay, well,
You
my wife
happy
gets
that
to see me wearing a lot of shirts,
right?
so
Exactly. So my wife likes it when I'm wearing a tie. She's
so you didn't dress up for me on this thing then. You don't have a suit on, as far as I can tell.
But welcome everybody, Congressman Ed Case. Thank you for being here.
Aloha, council member, and it's so great to call you council member. I'm really looking forward to our partnership. Of course, everybody knows you as who you are, but I actually have known you in a different way for over 10 years now. I think the first time we met may have been when you were giving a show over on Kauai, and I was campaigning for something or other over there then. And I remember talking to you, and you were asking me about public service at the time, and you were thinking about it even then. And this is maybe 10 years plus. And then a couple of years ago, we had another conversation, and you were still thinking about it. I told you, go for it already. Paul talking already. You know, many, many folks that want to get into elective office, they talk and think a long time, and of course, it's understandable. It takes quite a leap to go from talking and thinking about it to actually doing something about it. And so I'm really, really happy that you did that. And along those lines, I'll tell you my story about almost not doing it. So this is way back when I first ran for office, state legislature in Manoa Valley, many decades ago. I actually lost that race, but that's another story. So I think about it. I talk to myself. I talk to my family. I'm agonizing about it, and I wanted to do it. And I thought about it for months, and I planned it out, and I had everything all ready to go. But it came the moment of truth when I had my sign and I had to walk out on the street 5:30 in the morning, I think it was, to catch the early traffic on Manoa Road there. And I still remember exactly where it was. So I parked my car and I got my sign out of the car, and I said, "Okay, I'm ready. I'm going to go for it." And so I walked down towards the street, and about halfway down, I chickened out. I walked back to my car. I got in my car and I thought about it, and I said, "If I do this, my life's never going to be the same." So I got the sign out of the car. I started walking down to the street again, and I got almost to the street, and I went, "Oh, do I really want to do this? I can say no now, and nobody will ever really know other than the people that I talk to." And finally, I walked down to the street and I put my sign up and I waved, and the first car that went by me waved back, and I went, "Okay, I can do this." So I'm really happy that now maybe you didn't need as much, walking back and forth to the street as I did. Maybe you just decided to go for it and you went for it. But I'm really happy you're in it in
Thank
any
you.
event. So aloha and welcome to public service.
Yeah, no, I remember both of those conversations. Believe it or not, I always like a lot of people don't know this, but like I'm a geek. I love politics. I love the ins and outs of politics. I just love everything about it. And yeah, it's been a long time coming. And for me, it was just I saw how challenging it was for my family as an entertainer, and my children were young. I was already not spending a lot of time with them because I was on the road working, uh, and and I know that people can be really critical in this position, and I just didn't want them to deal with that. So I waited to my daughter graduated from high school, and I just felt like you, like, do I go for it? I wavered back and forth for the last 10 years, and finally I just said, I think this is a good time. I'm in a good place in my life, and my heart to want to serve has always been there. I just needed a push, and really the push was the last 5 years working with Mayor Billy Quinoa in the Big Island, and then going to schools, talking to people, and I grew up, uh, in low income housing. I understand the challenges, but I saw so much challenges, talking to everyday, and I think everyday people, and I think, as an entertainer, you get in that bubble, and you're just working, you're not looking, and talking to people. And when I went to work for Billy, I went in and talked to students and parents and teachers, and I realized, wow, man, this is how Hawaii is right now. And I just felt like it was a good time using the 28 years as an entertainer to come in and maybe do some good, and not just be the guy that people saw in the mall and went, hey, that's the guy that used to be funny. Now can use that celebrity to really help and understand the challenges in our community, and try to listen and be a problem solver, and be a part of amazing discussions. This last 5 months, the discussions, in city council, has been pretty amazing, and I'm excited.
It's interesting. You said a couple of things that really kind of resonated with me. The first one, you talked about your own mentors, the folks that actually got you to take the leap into elective office, and I think for any of us that serve in public office, there were some people that really inspired us, and somehow we looked at them and thought, you know what, that person's really making a difference, and I want to make that difference too. And you talked about Billy Kenoi, who I knew for a long, long time, back 20 years really before he was even in office, but he was interested in going into office, and he would have been quite an inspiration. He was an inspiration to many, many people out there. We just lost him, of course. Tremendous loss. For me, it was Spark Matsunaga, who was the U.S. representative back a couple of representatives before me, because I'm in his seat now. And I was just lucky to go to work for him as a very, very young man, like straight out of college. Like we're talking 2 days out of college. Like one day I grad college, and then Monday I was in his office as a summer intern in Washington D.C. And all of us have different backgrounds. So my background was a little different than yours. Well, growing up over on the Big Island, or maybe not so much different in some ways. But I watched him in action, and I thought, you know what, this is a person that I admire, that is committed to public service for all of the right reasons, is making a difference, cares about the connection between people and their government, and that's a life that I think I can go out there and make a difference in myself. Although it took me, as I already described, a while to get myself to the point where I actually put myself on the line. But you made a comment there about criticism, and of course, in elective office, you get criticized a lot, and that's part of the process. Debate is debate, and citizens have the right to be mad at you for your decisions. You're making the calls, and if you make the wrong call or if the wrong reasons, they have a right to tell you off, or tell you why they think you were wrong. But I would ask you, you've had a couple of months now in elective office. So what's worse in terms of criticism, stand-up comedy or public office?
Oh, it's nothing like dying on stage in front of an audience.
Yeah, I would think it would be a little tougher.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I've been in so much growing up as a boxer. People would always ask me, how is stand-up comedy, what's the difference? I go, well, the difference between stand-up comedy and boxing is that nervousness getting to the stage, and then, saying something that hopefully will get people to laugh. And if they don't laugh, it's like the worst feeling in the world. But I take that over getting punched in the face.
You would take that over
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. So
I mean, the punch in the face at least is nice and direct. Sometimes a stand-up comedy, or in elective office, if you're in front of an entire room in a talk story in a public school cafeteria somewhere, and I hope we can get back to those days, because I really miss that. You're there. Anybody can say anything to you that they want, and they do. I've had some real good ones in my time, but I've never been a stand-up comedian, so
But
standing.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like for me, 28 years of being an entertainer and coming here to city council, uh, it was years of understanding an audience, years at finding my voice on stage. So I look at this new challenge as like it's a different audience, and I gotta find my voice and where I'm at. And I'm thankful for those 28 years of, and so small ways, stand-up comedy and business is almost like politics. You got to deal with shady characters. You got to deal with genuine people. You got to deal with rough audience. You got to deal with like awesome audiences too. And you still got to get out there and you got to do your job. You got to do what people came to pay to see you do. And I'm taking this job serious. I love every aspect, and that's one of the questions I was going to ask you. I mean, in all the years you've been in politics on the state level, now federal, what are some of your experience or anything that you can share with me or anybody that's watching this? Hopefully, a lot of you guys are watching, because I think if it's anything I can do the next 4 years is trying to encourage the everyday guy to get out there, get involved, to learn and understand, the functioning of government.
Well, I think, well, first of all, one thing I did want to make sure everybody, you and I understood, was that you and I have over 100,000 constituents on this island that we both represent. My district is, the first congressional district of Hawaii. We
Mm-hmm.
have two members of the U.S. House from Hawaii. I've got the first district. My colleague and partner Kaeli has District 2. And my district goes all the way from Makapu'u on the east side through downtown Honolulu, out through Pearl City, up to, Mililani, down through Waipahu, and out to Eva Beach, Kapolei, Kahe Point. So it's really urban Honolulu. And that is almost exactly your District 9. There's a couple of places where we don't overlap, but that's the exception rather than the rule. And for me, it don't much matter. I mean, I don't technically represent Village Park, Royal Kania. Do I represent them? Of course I do. I mean, they're right next to my district. Of course I'm going to do whatever they need. So I don't call up, Kai and say, hey, that's your problem, not mine. And those are your areas. And similarly, you don't have some of Waipahu that I have, but I don't think you think that much about it too. So the number one thing I want to say is it's great to have a partner. I think when you're in government, and this is one of the things I've learned, but not the main thing to relate to you. But one thing I've learned is you're not in it yourself. You can't do it alone. You need partners, especially at the federal level. And I'm in my what is it now? Eighth year of being in the U.S. Congress for Hawaii as an elected official. I was there for 3 years with Spark Matsunaga. And one thing I've learned is you're one person in Congress. There's only two of us in the U.S. House out of 435. There's only four of us, including our two U.S. senators, Senators Schatz and Hirono, out of 535. And so, if you don't have partners, if you can't go out there and be the Lone Ranger, you're going to be lost in the shuffle. And so, for me, number one, the partnerships that I have with other members of Congress, with people in the administration that I get to know, that I try to help them where I can, and I ask them for help where I need it. And then back home, my partnerships with my fellow elected officials at the state and the county level, including you, are absolutely invaluable to me to be able to do my job. I mean, I'm not on the ground like you are every single day in your district. I'm in DC more than half the year, and so I have to have what I sometimes call an early warning system. Like, what are the issues that are really concerning people back home that I need to know about, so I can figure out if there's a federal fix. And so that's, I love talking story with you, but part of this is also us having a partnership where
Yeah.
your office, my office, we try to help each other. I'm talking with the mayor tomorrow. That's part of it. I talked with Governor Ige and Speaker Psyche last week. That's part of it. And so the partnership is really, really invaluable. Now, as to what I've kind of learned the most about my last many decades, sometimes it seems like too many decades in politics, is it sounds trite to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Democracy really can work. When democracy is working, it's a beautiful thing. And even when it's not working so well, and that's the case right now in Washington D.C. and frankly even here back at home, even when it's not working well, it's still preferable to anything else I can think of. But when it works well, it is awesome. I have seen, and what that takes, and it goes back to something you said right before I started motor mouthing here, was you said your motivation was to get people involved, and that's when it works well. When you have elected officials who are involved in their constituencies, in their communities, personally involved. I'm not talking about, hey, staff, go talk, to staff is invaluable, but it doesn't replace the actual elected official being out there in touch with his or her constituents. And when you have folks in the communities who feel that their involvement in government makes a difference, that's when it can really, really work. So that's why I spend so much time just trying to stay in touch with my communities through talk stories, through, unfortunately during COVID, in the time of Zoom here, any way I can, because I believe that the more I interact with the folks that I represent, the better I am as their representative, and the better democracy is, because they feel that they actually do have a connection to their government. Spark Monsonaga, again, talking about lessons, he told me something one time that stuck with me, has stuck with me ever since. And he said, he was giving this talk to incoming staff, and he tries to educate the staff on the importance of what they are doing for him. And basically what he said was, for many, many people that I represent, I am the federal government. I'm the only contact they'll ever have with the federal government. I mean, they pay their taxes for decades. They have to comply with the laws of our federal government, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of, here is my federal government, I am that. And if I do a good job, then they will feel good about their federal government. And if I don't do a good job, then they'll go to their grave mad that they paid those taxes and feeling like their federal government didn't care. So I've taken that to heart.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that's about what I've learned.
No, I think that's so important during this challenging time. So one of the things that we are motivated to doing in our office is exactly what you're saying. Just getting to know everyone in our neighborhood board, asking suggestions, talking to faith-based groups, and most importantly, sometimes there's the state and there's city, right? That's the state job, and it's been awesome talking with Representative Ty Cullen, Representative Henry Aquino, Senator Kurt Favela, and everybody. And this is a partnership. We 157,000 people in District 9, and we need that kind of collaboration and openness and transparency. And when they see that happening, I think, like you said, people feel a lot more secure and happier. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Let me turn the question over on you a little bit.
Okay.
You haven't been in elective office for decades, but you've been in elective office for over 4 months, and you probably have a lot more perspective on it because you're new to it. So it's kind of like you're still in a new place. To me, I always have to fight getting too used to it, I guess I would say, so that I start to lose my edge, if I can put it that way. And so I don't like that. So you, 4 months, you wanted to do this for a long time. You finally took the leap. You're a small business person. You were successful in another realm that didn't have a whole bunch to do with, politics, other than making fun of politicians, which we need. So I hope you don't change that. You can look in the mirror and make fun of yourself, as far as
Absolutely, yeah.
So what have been the lessons that you've drawn from just your first 4 months of being the person charged with the decisions? that you used to tell everybody else, hey, you should make a different decision. Now that is looking in the mirror.
No, no, it's exactly what you said. I mean, uh, I am almost blown away, when people feel appreciated, like, and I think it's that background from being an entertainer. Even if they paid $10 to watch a show, I was gonna give them a $50 show. So you know, whenever I talk with people, whenever I now in this stage in my life when I'm talking to a group and stuff like that, I see everybody the same way. Like they're valuable. Whatever they tell me, even if it's wrong, valuable. And it's you can see how it's so much different. As an entertainer, people come to see you laugh, to come and laugh. Augie, make me laugh. And you come to a neighborhood board and you hear somebody talk and you connecting with them, like you said, right? When you listening and you paying attention to their needs and they feel like you heard everything that they said. The appreciation is like amazing. The emails that I get, or just a simple acknowledgement that, hey, thank you so much for listening. I think for me right now is like the most coolest thing, because running, I knew it was gonna be challenging. The 28 years of doing entertainment, I wanted to get out there because I wanted to see what people, how they respond to me. And one of the stories I tell was out in Mililani. Everybody told me, Congressman, that Mililani was going to be on challenge. So I'm walking up to the guy's door and I hear, I'm going to vote for you. He's on a howly guy, big howly guy. And I'm like, all right, all right. And I go, why are you going to vote for me? And he goes, I watched you for 20 years and I feel like you're my friend. And I feel like you're not going to mess that friendship up. And I was like, wow, thank you, man. And it validated a lot of things in me that I always knew, but I wouldn't have known if I didn't step into this field. You only get the attention when you do the shows. But when you gotta go door to door and you know this, and you get somebody looking at you and you're looking at them in the eye and they go, I'm gonna vote for you because I feel like you're my friend and I trust you. It's a total different feeling. So
Yeah, well, isn't that's representation? I mean, that person voted for you because he felt you would represent him, and he had to make some connection with you. He had to make a decision that you would represent him,
yeah,
as opposed to somebody he had nothing in common with at all. Not philosophically, not hey, you went to the same high school, or whatever it might be. Um, that's what people want, and I think you described it very, very well, better than I described it, and that is that folks want to know that their government listens to them. That's the biggest complaint that people actually have. If you listen to somebody carefully and you have a discussion with them about what they believe and what you believe and why you might disagree, and I have to take thousands of votes. I mean, I've taken thousands of votes in my life, and I'm pretty darn sure nobody agreed with me 100% of the time. But if they feel that I listened to them and I took their views into consideration when I made my decision, and I explained to them why I made my decision, they will still feel that I represented them, even if I didn't vote on that particular issue the way they wanted me to vote. And I think that's one of the valuable lessons is that, there's an old saying that goes, by this kind of old English politician type that said basically, what do you owe to your constituents? You owe them your best judgment. And I think that's been true also for me over the course of my career. So I just try to make my best call. Sometimes people get really, really mad at that, but hopefully over a variety of my best calls, it adds up to representation.
By the way, your staff has been fantastic in helping my staff. So thank you, thank you. So I got a question. Okay, so what are your top three goals for Hawaii?
Well, maybe I can maybe I can just quickly describe what I think my job is
Okay.
as and my job right now is in the United States Congress. So my answer might be slightly different if I was in county office or in state office, but I'm in the U.S. Congress right now. And so I kind of describe my job in three buckets, if I can put it that way. The first bucket is to make the best decisions for our country. So it's not so much about Hawaii there. It's about, hey, I'm one of the representatives throughout our country that has to make a decision on some of these incredibly difficult issues for our country. You know, um, do we stay or leave Afghanistan? What do we do about immigration at the southern border? These are big, difficult national and international issues, and I got to make the best call I can there. And then the second bucket is how can I make the federal government help Hawaii itself? So that's very, very much about Hawaii. That's about, hey, we got this big old federal government. It's 5,000 miles away, and I got to tell you, folks in Washington D.C., they're well-meaning for the most part. So these are not people that have it out for Hawaii, but they don't get Hawaii. Um, they 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 have no experience. We're so different than the rest of the country in many, many ways. Just the fact that we're a bunch of islands, for example, creates differences that people in Hawaii, I mean, in Washington, don't always think about. So that's about making sure the federal programs work for us here in Hawaii. And it's also about federal funding, which at the end of the day is about the best thing that I can do to help Hawaii. I'm on the Appropriations Committee in the House, which is the money committee, it's sometimes called. So that's the committee that's responsible for making these allocations across the country. And so trying to steer that money to the right places that will help Hawaii is an important part. And then the third part is just helping people with their individual concerns. And you spoke to this a little bit already. Our offices have worked together because sometimes people will come to me and they'll want help with something that is not really my kuleana at the federal government, but it's yours at the county level. So we trade back and forth. If you get those questions, I'll take the federal ones. So those are the areas that I try to focus on. But in terms of how I translate that over to Hawaii, a couple of different things. I mean, I think first, we're always going to have to be concerned here in Hawaii about providing good, solid jobs for our people. So keeping a strong economy. We need to take care of the economies that we already have here. So tourism is still number one.
Mm-hmm.
Been terribly impacted by COVID-19, but we needed to come back. Hopefully, we need to come back better because a lot of folks are starting to get a little down on it right now with good reason. I think it's becoming a little too intrusive in our lives, but I think we can do that. And hey, we don't have another industry where we can compete at that level throughout the entire world and maintain that level of jobs and good solid livings for folks that live in your and my districts. So that's number one. Our military. Number two, that's our second largest economy is our federal government, particularly through our military. You have many military families in our mutual district. Just think of what Hawaii's economy would have looked like over the last year plus during COVID-19 when tourism tanked. Our federal spending through our military is what pulled us through. And I think sometimes we take it for granted, and we can't do that because the military has other options, and we don't want them to take those other options. But beyond that, there's a whole another range of areas where we've got to do better in terms of diversifying our economy. I think some of the areas we can do it in are still have been for a long time focused on information technology jobs. So not manufacturing computer parts, but people that can work anywhere in the world, including our own folks. Living here and being on the net and connected through broadband, that can be a real economic driver. It already is, but not to the extent we need it to be. Education can fit into that category too. International education primarily, because a lot of people will come here to learn and spend time here. So those are some areas I focus on. The economy, the safety net is always going to be a really critical part of my agenda. Do we just have the basics to take care of people who can't take care of themselves? And these are people that want the best. They try hard, but for whatever reason, whether it be affordable housing or healthcare or education or any of those basics of life, I think our government owes them us, because it's all of us working together. So it's not us versus them. It's all of us who need help. Owes them the support that we can muster for that. And then finally, I would throw in, so that's number one,
Yeah.
economy. Number two, kind of the social safety net. Number three, I believe that we have a very, very special environment here. And so I believe it's at risk. And I believe that we can lose it if we're not careful. So I'm very, very focused on trying to preserve the best of our Hawaii wherever I can. Anyway,
That's awesome.
how about you? What about you from your perspective? You went out there. You worked very, very hard to earn election. That means you went to a lot of front doors, like the gentleman that you talked about, and now you're in office. You're hearing from everybody about priorities. I know one that you said was really, really critical that I agree with you on during your campaign was public safety. You said that a lot of folks felt unsafe, and so I would ask you, let's compare notes a little bit. What are your priorities for our mutual district?
It is the same thing. I still go out and we really engage the community, and people want safe parks. They want cleaner parks. And it's frustrating as a freshman councilman to see, we're short of staff that should do really easy tasks like cutting the grass. People in our neighborhood wants to see clean bathrooms in the parks. That's what they're hearing. That's what I'm hearing. They want more beats in the community, and we know that the police is operating like on 60%, 65%. It's hard getting new recruits. And quality of life, it's the same thing that I heard in the campaign now. Like it's so hard to stay afloat. A lot of people in our district, living paycheck to paycheck, and that was one of the reasons why I ran. My mom and dad, they worked hard all their life, but when my dad got sick, he had to move in with me so that he can get the necessary care and treatment. But if they were renting, there's no way he could have got the kind of medical care that and then stay afloat. So it's the same thing, Congressman. People want clean parks, safe parks. They wanna see more policemen. They want to feel safe in their own communities, and they quality of life, they're finding it very hard. And you can see a lot of people in our district out in Eva moving away, selling their homes, because people are buying real estate property right now is booming, and people either refinancing, which can take them back, or they're selling their homes and moving. And so
where are they moving to? Off island, off
mainland. They're moving. They may be moving to the mainland. Yeah, and you hear it. My kids gotta move away because it's too expensive, and I feel for that. And I have adult kids, and I'm challenged by that too. So, I want to be a part of that discussion that goes, wait, how do we make this good for future generations? So
let me ask you this to follow up on. Where do you think that our federal government can most help you and our mutual constituents? But now I'm talking about you as a city council member with the services that the city and county is responsible for. I mean, you talked about some of the benefits, community benefits that are really, really critical, and I think you've talked a couple of times around, but now just to take it straight on, affordable housing. These are areas that the city is very much involved in. Where do you think the federal government? We can get to COVID-19, by the way, in a second, but just aside from COVID-19, if there is such an aside right now.
I think one of the things that I you saw with people just trying to get information on how to get loans, you know, funding nonprofits, you that can help in our park situation, or cleanups, community policing, so getting people information um, on how they can get those federal monies to help their programs. I think that's the biggest thing as I'm talking to people. People want stuff done, but they don't realize how hard it is to, get those monies. And I think if we can find an easier way to help, especially nonprofit groups that are always looking, that they're actively involved in the community, they can help me with, cleaning the parks, or helping Kupuna to get on the computer and learn how to go online and get the assistance that they need. I think that would help us plenty.
Yeah, it's a frustration for me because the federal government has, many programs, and I don't think that we take full enough advantage of all of those programs.
Mm-hmm.
This is throughout Hawaii. I think that if you look at, for example, the programs that the federal government offers, where state and county governments can and nonprofits can compete for those grants. So these are what we refer to as competitive grants. So they're not the grants that are going to come to you because the money was appropriated. It's kind of automatic. Some of that, like transportation money, for example, a lot of that is pretty automatic. It's driven by a formula. How many people in your state versus other states. But there's, aside from the formula grants, there's competitive grants also, where you're out there saying, hey, I fit the purposes of this program, and this is the right place for the federal government to spend these federal monies because it'll achieve the purpose. There's something like 1,300 of those across all of federal government, and I think we've had a mixed result, frankly, Council Member, here throughout Hawaii. I think we can do better at the state and the county government level, and the nonprofits. Some are really, really good. Like I talked story in the paper the other day about the University of Hawaii. They've got a really pretty tight operation in terms of getting those monies. And I know that within your city council and the mayor's administration, you've talked about a little bit more expertise to help with getting those federal monies, which I would frankly encourage. It would be helpful for me and Senators Schatz and Hero and Rep. Kahele to help with.
We're in a good place with a lot of you guys in good positions to really help Hawaii. Yeah, you want to share a little bit about that before we get into COVID?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think so much of what any congressional delegation is able to achieve in Washington is it's not only about the individual members, but it's how they all fit together and kind of cover the territory, if I can put it that way. And right now, in the U.S. Congress, I mean, our congressional delegation has about as good coverage as we've ever had. And I think, hopefully I'm being objective about that, but we've got, I'm on the House Appropriations Committee, Senator Schatz is on the Senate Appropriations Committee. And so right there you have a delegation with two members on both sides on appropriations. That doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
That's the first time that's happened for Hawaii in about 40 years. We had a little bit when Representative Kaka was still in the U.S. House, and Senator Inoue was on approps over on the Senate side. We have Congressman Kahele, who's come in very, very strong on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, which is responsible for what it sounds like. And we have a major infrastructure package that has been recommended by President Biden in the trillions of dollars. So infrastructure, think about, kind of more traditional, like, roads and harbors and bridges and airports and sewer lines and mass transit, but also beyond that. So we're talking about broadband.
Right.
Broadband is so critical to us here in Hawaii, not only the rural parts of our state, which, you and I don't represent really, although you have some pretty rural parts in your district, as you know, more rural than anybody really expects for being in urban Honolulu. But we have a lot of our urban Honolulu that does not have adequate broadband today. So that's important. So anyway, Congressman Kaiheli has transportation and infrastructure. Senator Hirono is on the Armed Services Committee on the Senate side, so that's our number 2 industry. Representative Kaiheli is on Armed Services on the House side. So it's a good solid delegation right now to try to get things done, and it's very fragile, right? I mean, any one of us could not be in office the next time, or maybe we're not in the majority the next time, or maybe we can't retain our membership on those committees the next time. So for me, it's striking while the iron is hot, if I can put it that way.
Hawaii's economy has taken a big hit because of COVID. Many people lost their jobs here, and having money reduced. How is the federal government helping residents through this crisis, and what else can we look forward to?
So 14 months ago now, COVID really hit us all pretty hard, and that was definitely true of Hawaii, where we had one of the worst economic results in the entire country because tourism crashed. And by the way, because I think that looking back on it now, we made the right decisions in terms of how to handle the public health side of COVID-19. So the restrictions that we put in place pretty early on gave us one of the best public health results in the country, but one of the contributed to a pretty devastating economic result, especially for our families and communities and small businesses. And so starting right then, March of last year, 2020, we passed the CARES Act, which was close to $2 trillion of assistance to small businesses, in direct stimulus payments, supplementation to unemployment benefits for those who had lost their jobs, and then finally aid to our state and county governments to be spent with some discretion. We saw somewhere in the range of somewhere close to $15 billion come to Hawaii from the CARES Act, as well as another act that we passed, smaller but still very significant, late last year in December. And then finally, just shortly, not too many, but just the month before last, really, we passed the American Rescue Plan, which was another $2 trillion, including about $2 billion to state and county governments, $2.2 billion, as a matter of fact, including hundreds of millions to the city and county of Honolulu to be used for the discretion of the city and county of Honolulu. So all of this money has been out there and has been filtering into our economy over the last 14 months. In many ways, we've tried to keep small businesses afloat. We've tried to keep families afloat. We've tried to pay for the health care that was needed for those that were desperately sick, and for our healthcare facilities to be able to care for them. We are paying right now for all of the vaccinations coming to Hawaii, and we hope to continue that vaccination as quickly as we can, because that really is our answer. We have helped out in education by aid to our schools and our other communities. So at the end of the day, the major contribution that I think we've made to help Hawaii through this devastating crisis was federal funding to the areas the most impacted, whether they be our industries or our communities or our nonprofits or our people, our ohana. And that's consumed virtually all of my time over the last 14 months. Because, it's one thing to pass these laws in Washington, D.C. Okay, I can vote for the law. I did. I supported it, introduced many provisions of what became the law. But even after it's passed, even after the federal government gets a hold of a brand new law, that ain't the end of the road. You gotta track that money all the way through. You gotta track it from DC to arrival in Hawaii, and then even after it's here, to be honest, we were, kind of hounding the state and county governments, including my colleagues and partners, to hey, is this getting out into communities? This money that we have provided to you, but that's been, it's been a good partnership in that way, and so that's the major area that we have tried to assist is anywhere that people are feeling the impacts of COVID-19. Can we help by funding? Can we help by easing federal requirements or putting them on a waiver basis for a while people sort through? We extended the tax deadline, for example, for federal tax filings to help people out there. And then finally, I just want to go back to the vaccination side. I'm going to repeat myself here, but I just think this is so critical to get across to everybody. And the reason I think it's so critical is because we are in Hawaii way ahead of the curve in terms of the national curve, in terms of the numbers of us that have now been vaccinated, to get ourselves to a position where we can not only start to enjoy each other again, but also start to open up a safe tourism economy. But we have just hit a not very good marker. Just today, yesterday, just in the last few days, where the supply of vaccine that we're getting here in Hawaii is actually starting to outpace the demand. So in other words, there's more vaccine available than there are people that are coming in to get it. And we know that we're nowhere close to finishing all of the vaccinations that we need to get ourselves to what we all call herd immunity, which is enough of us. So I just want to urge everybody, if you haven't done that yet, do it. If you're concerned about anything, there's plenty of information online to, walk through the practical risks. The bottom line is it's going to be a lot worse for you to get sick than any conceivable risk from being vaccinated. And so I think all of us owe to our constituents the truth on vaccinations, the pros and the cons, and people can make their decision. But to me, it's a decision that we have to make for each and all of us.
Absolutely, especially in our district in Eva and Waipahu, we have the largest unemployment rate. A lot of them work in Waikiki, so take the advice from the congressman, guys. You guys ultimately have the decision, but I know for a fact there's a lot of people that want to get back to work. I know. Can you believe it? We did almost 50 minutes. It felt like only like 20. So we had a ton of questions come in from.
Go ahead. I'll try to speed answer.
No. I want to make sure that I get one of our constituents' question, because I know you love talking about the Jones Act, getting a Jones Act exemption for Hawaii. Can you explain? Because there's a lot of people that don't know what the Jones Act is all about, but how Hawaii and whether if it's possible for Hawaii to ever get the exemption.
Okay, well, the Jones Act is a federal law that was enacted 100 years ago. So a little over 100 years ago now, 1920. And what the Jones Act says is that if you are shipping goods between two U.S. ports, so for example, Oakland, California, and Honolulu, Hawaii, which happens to be our major shipping lane, Oakland to Honolulu, that's the gravy train. You must use U.S. shipping, flagged shipping, ships that are built in the United States and flagged or registered in the United States. Now, 100 years ago, that may have made some sense because we had all kinds of Jones Act ships and shipping. Today, we're down under 100 Jones Act ships in our country because people aren't building these ships primarily in the United States, and because they're able to function more freely in the world market without being registered in the United States. So what started out as perhaps having some at least defensible reasons 100 years ago has turned into a federal law that simply creates a monopoly for a very, very small number of shippers. And that's not as bad on the mainland, where you can use it if you don't like the cost of goods, putting a container from, let's say, down the Mississippi River from Minneapolis to New Orleans. So that's 2 U.S. ports, got to be Jones Act shipping. Now, if you don't like what the shippers are charging you in the Mississippi, then you can take a truck. You can take a train. Maybe you can even take an airplane. Wasn't there a song along those lines? Anyway, you get the point. And so, but if you're shipping between Oakland, California, and Honolulu, Hawaii, 90+% of our goods come in there. You don't have the option of a train or a truck or even a plane. And so it creates a grip on the lifeline that is controlled by two companies. Now, I don't think those companies compete with each other, in all honesty. Their rates are the same. One goes up, the other goes up, one goes down, the other goes down. Maybe they're not talking to each other because that would be a violation of federal antitrust law. But miraculously, the rates stay pretty high. And I don't think that's right for a state like Hawaii that is impacted. And it shows up all over the place. We're having a tremendous problem with lumber right now.
Right.
For housing, just building our houses, lumber is jacked up. Now, part of that is our trade policy with Canada, which hopefully we can fix. But part of that is because that has to come in your Jones Act. Milk from the mainland. We always talk about the price of milk. Okay, take the bite for the Jones Act. So if we had more competition in that market, which would be non-Jones Act ships, then I think the prices would be more established by competition as opposed to just people that don't have to worry about competition setting it, and it impacts each and all of us in all kinds of ways. Sometimes people say, well, that's gonna destroy U.S. ships, and we need it for security purposes and all that kind of stuff. Well, first of all, I think we can in fact maintain federal laws for non-Jones Act ships. So it's not as if you're gonna have all of these foreign workers that are going to be being abused on the ships, which is sometimes an argument used. No, they have to comply with U.S. law on how to treat your workforce. They have to comply with U.S. environmental laws. They still have access to the military for their needs in the time of a crisis. So, at least in the case for islands like Hawaii, sometimes it's like, okay, mainland, do whatever you want. If you want the Jones Act or don't want it, that's up to you. But the island states and jurisdictions, where it really hurts, we need an exemption. I've introduced a bill again, 3 bills actually, to change that. It's long uphill slugging because it's such a powerful lobby. Why wouldn't it be? They make so much money off of the monopoly. So they don't like me talking too much the way I'm talking right now. But I figure I need to tell people what the consequence is, and there's an alternative to it. And so I'm hopeful that over time, as more people understand what's going on, they will support what I'm trying to say. I went to Hilo over the weekend to help Congressman Kahele open up his office over there. First time I'd been Holo a little bit. Hilo's my hometown, so that was really nice to do. And I got off the plane, and one of the flight attendants, she looked at me and she goes, "Thanks for the Jones Act." And my wife looked at me and goes, "What was that all about?" And I said, "Well, that's somebody that's been listening about the Jones Act." And so I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah, no, I got an email this morning about the Jones Act, and I was like, you know what? I've heard you talk about it, so why not ask? Yeah.
Okay, well, I probably took a little too long to answer it, but it's an important issue, and it affects each and all of us in very pernicious ways that we don't realize. Every time we go to the store, we pay too much for stuff that's this antiquated old federal law that has no relevance today, but it's just still in shape. So we ought to keep talking about it, and I think we could probably pull off some changes to the Jones Act over time.
Awesome. Well, time has come for say aloha, but wow, that hour went by super quick. I just hope that everybody watching now and in the future that you got great input or you got great advice. We would love to answer any of your emails. You can email me at atulba@honolulu.gov. Congressman, how can people get a hold of you?
The best way into my office is my website, case.house.gov, case.house.gov. That's all kinds of information, COVID-19, contact information, Phone number 650-6688, but really the website is the easiest. And we really would like people to, like I said earlier in the show, what makes this all work is being in touch with folks and listening to folks. And so that's what that website is all about.
Well, I absolutely appreciate you jumping on. I know you're busy. Next time you're in the community, call me. I'd love to go and hang out, walk around, and we can both talk to the people in our. We have a great district, and that's one of the things that I appreciate. We have really good people in our district, and I think in this challenging time, I think they need to see leaders like yourself, myself, and even in the community come together to make our communities work. So appreciate the time, and again, I hope you guys got a lot from watching this. I hope that you guys get questions to us, because this is how it's gonna work. Honestly, it's communicating like this, and we appreciate you guys watching and taking the time to hang out with us. Thank you, Congressman Case. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much, Council Member, and best of luck and stay in touch. Mahalo.
Thank you. Aloha.